You only need to know me. I will be the one.
This is somewhat of a part 2 to an earlier video I made about Luffy's next gear, be it gear 4 or 5, but for this video I wanted to focus specifically on gear 5 itself because I think it will or could be not just Luffy's final gear, but his ultimate one. There is something that has been happening to Luffy ever since he entered the land of Wano, something that is also definitive of his experiences ever since setting out to sail as a pirate from East Blue, ever since he first departed to conquer the Grand Line. It is said the travels of a man, the journey of his life, will come to mold his character, his spirit, his innermost nature and define him. Trials and tribulations. The ability to overcome countless obstacles, such an experience is highly transformative, revealing who you truly are. Now that we are here in Wano, after all that Luffy has been through, will we bear witness to the fruits of his labor? Have we already seen some of the results? If we have, I think its totality could be revealed through a future transformation, the topic of this video, Luffy's hypothetical final gear, Gear 5. We'll come back to this in a moment, but first, let's go over the other gears and how they transformed Luffy's abilities or nature overall. So a subscriber named Michael D. Mingo had sent me this comment in the past under the other Gear 5 video, and he lists each stage of Luffy's being, so to speak, when he shifts between gears. Every gear uses Luffy's Devil Fruit in a unique way to alter his regular body, his resting state. As Luffy progresses, we see him post-time skip incorporate his spirit into the ability, his haki. As you can see on the screen, Gear 1, which doesn't really exist I guess, but for the purposes of the discussion pretend Luffy's base or normal form is Gear 1. In that case, Gear 1 would be skin. Luffy in base form uses his Devil Fruit to stretch the skin or flesh of his body. With Gear 2 then, we have blood. Luffy's Gear 2 transformation uses this base form's elasticity to quickly pump blood throughout his entire body, giving him an overall power boost. The steam you see evaporating from him is like a kettle boiling over, ready to burst with unsuppressed energy. Lucci had compared the process of Gear 2 to doping, as more red blood cells travel to specific parts of Luffy's body, which in turn allows for greater delivery of oxygen and nutrients to the body parts at faster rates. Gear 3 now involves elasticity of another kind. Luffy puts his thumb in his mouth and blows air into it, inflating his arm. He is then able to transfer the air through his entire body, requiring the torso to act as an interface for his various limbs. Luffy tends to blow such a large amount of air into his body that when directed toward a single limb, the air inflates said limb to a size equivalent to or greater than, at some times, that of a giant. Now with Gear 4, Luffy coats his arm in haki before biting into his forearm, and similar to how he activates Gear 3, he blows an incredible amount of air into his body as well, but this time he inflates his muscular structure, not his bone structure, before distributing the air throughout the rest of his body. When utilizing Gear 4, Luffy then relies upon a massive usage of his haki to coat large portions of his body, and as a result, overexerting this power can leave him unable to use haki for a period of time. Unlike the earlier gears, I want to mention why Gear 4 was needed to defeat Doflamingo. I mentioned the reasons as to why Gear 2 and 3 were important in the other Gear 5 video, and there's no need to reiterate everything here. But Gear 2 and 3 were both needed by Luffy to compensate for something he was lacking when fighting Rob Lucci and Blueno. Speed and strength to keep up with a faster, highly durable opponent. We saw the same thing with Doflamingo. Dofi says your attacks might be fast, but there's no weight behind them. So what does Luffy do? He enters Gear 4, Bound Man. Luffy's premise for entering Gear 4 was to increase his size and resiliency to overpower wild beasts that were as large as monsters, creatures he fought while training on Ruzukaina Island with Rayleigh. After increasing his defenses with arm and haki, and at the same time using that same haki to amplify his overall power, multiplying the tensile force of his rubber several times beyond its limits, Luffy is able to defeat Doflamingo with a single decisive blow in the end. King Kong Gun. Now, with Kaido, there's increasing agreement Luffy will activate a new gear to overcome Kaido's own incredible durability and speed, but also, given how many times Luffy has been knocked out, Luffy will need something to bolster or upgrade his own defenses, to overcome Kaido's own conquering spirit and related attacks. Luffy's current abilities, the newfound power he's found to coat himself in Conquerors, to flow Conquerors haki to and beyond his body, is not enough. Make sure to follow Kia Caburn, I think I'm saying that right, on Twitter. You can see the link here, as well as in the description, hopefully. He made this amazing dope, words don't even begin to describe how cool it is, but a really remarkable fan edit of Luffy vs. Kaido from chapter 1010 after he learns the new ability of Conquerors. One Kaido said only a select few could use, even rarer than being a conqueror in and of itself. Much harder to find in this world than those 1 in a million supreme kings Rayleigh had once described. But of course Kaido would later remark that Luffy's use of the ability was clumsy and crude, that he had infused himself with Conqueror's haki, yes, successfully, but done so poorly, he had yet to master the ability. It would seem maybe that Big Mom and Kaido and a few others know exactly how this ability is to be used. There has been an idea endorsed by myself and Joyboy from a long time ago that people themselves can become Black Blades, a will or spirit that gains permanence over time and refuses to break so long as its wielder's will is greater than any other. I have a video on this in relation to Mihawk and Zoro coming out soon, but Kaido and Big Mom, devil fruits aside, experimentation aside, are difficult to kill. And one other explanation might be that their conquering spirits act as a sort of invincible, invisible armor. Luffy continues to be knocked out by Kaido, but notice no matter how many times Kaido defeats him, he continues to rise, to return to the field of battle another time, a spirit that rebounds in the same manner as Luffy's rubber devil fruit. This will be important later, so remember it. So from skin to blood to bone to muscle, we now need to address a 5th transformation. Earlier theories from many years ago, ever since the introduction of Gear 4th, have speculated Luffy would go from the muscular system with Gear 4th to the nervous system with Gear 5th. That his brain or nervous system, as funny as it sounds, would somehow expand, or similar to Gear 2nd, the impulses transmitted by his neurons would move a lot faster, increasing his reaction time, speed, reflexes, etc. Such a change would fit very well with observation haki, maybe perceiving things at light speed, and then imagine if this were combined with future sight. But given everything that has been going on ever since the beginning of Wano, it seems as if this arc has been placing tremendous emphasis upon Luffy's spirit primarily. Whether this new transformation will occur during the fight with Kaido or sometime in the distant future against Blackbeard or another opponent, I'm not sure, but I do think the gear should focus upon the disposition of Luffy's soul, and the spirit or character of a man seeking the title of Pirate King. There's something that has been happening to Luffy ever since he entered the land of Wano, something that is also definitive of his experiences ever since setting out to sail as a pirate from East Blue, ever since he first departed to conquer the Grand Line. It is said the travels of a man, the journey of his life, will come to mold his character, his spirit, his innermost nature, and define him. Trials and tribulations, the ability to overcome countless obstacles, such an experience is truly transformative. Now that we are here in Wano, after all that Luffy has been through, will we bear witness to the fruits of his labor? Have we already seen some of the results? I believe we have. It seems as if every time Luffy is knocked out, he awakens a new power, or at the very least, displays a new use of an old ability we had not yet seen before. During their first fight, Kaido knocks out Luffy and he uses Conquerors while unconscious, to the surprise of us readers, the beast pirates around him, as well as Kaido. Wano has long been an arc defined by a quest to become the greatest king, Luffy's overall challenge in his fight against the 4 emperors of the sea, and this moment was no different. A test to see whether Luffy's spirit would break along the way. Kaido's familiar line of questioning about what kind of king Luffy desires to be. Kaido's first of many attempts to break Luffy's will, the will of a conqueror, a will that Rayleigh once questioned as to whether or not it could stomach the journey, conquer the Grand Line. Not just its powerful oceans, but foes as well, emperors such as the world's strongest creature and pirate. Luffy's stubborn inability to stay down, a body whose bones might break, but whose spirit refuses to yield. This quality was worthy of Kaido's admiration. We see on Onigashima as the island floats towards Wano's mainland. Kaido uses another Conqueror's coded attack named Ragnarok to knock Luffy out another time, and still, Luffy's will did not break. His spirit endured. Luffy awakens quote-unquote from being unconscious and unlocks a new or advanced version of Conqueror's haki, what I like to call Conqueror's flow. As it becomes clear Luffy is no ordinary man, as Kaido recognizes something familiar about Luffy's smile in defiance of fate under threat of death, that the more he smiles, the more he laughs, the greater his will of D perhaps. Once more Kaido knocks out Luffy and he is sent flying over the edge of Onigashima, tumbling downwards from the sky into the oceans below. A lot of people at the time wrote Luffy off then and there, They couldn't even wait another week for another chapter. But I've come to realize we should always bet on Luffy to never doubt him. If we aren't shown proof, or maybe even if we are, our faith in him will never die. Momonosuke communicates this same idea, this same feeling, this principle, this ground of belief to the Alliance, to all of Onigashima, to all with ears to hear. So what I'm about to say to you guys is more hype, yes, but I'm paid to be Oda's #1 hype man, as I said in another video, even if it sounds like I'm whispering at times. Even if it's ASMR or whatever some of you like to call it, but Oda is setting up an incredibly emotional comeback. I think, especially given the message Momonosuke shares to Onigashima and maybe, eventually, all of Wano. Luffy is still alive. The person, the voice Momonosuke was hearing last chapter in a recent chapter was believed to have been Zunisha or Joyboy, or well, maybe it was Joyboy in a way, but the voice really belonged to Luffy. Despite being unconscious, despite being defeated by Kaido yet again and falling into the dark waters below, Luffy's will refuses to break. Even now his spirit is reaching out, yearning to fight, making sure everyone is okay. Like a true captain, reminding everyone from the other side to trust in him, to believe he will win. Momo on Luffy's behalf implores the Alliance to keep fighting as a nice counterbalance to Kaido, don't you think, who just a while ago announced Luffy's defeat? Two opposing voices inspiring their armies towards victory. A collision of wills inherited by each captain. Momonosuke speaks in a way that alludes to Luffy's current condition and what Luffy has been doing all along. He says to keep fighting. Please, even if it hurts, even if you have nothing left, fight until the very last breath. As we see Luffy running out of breath, practically drowning as Momo's and Luffy's words reverberate around Onigashima. Momo, let everybody know, I'm still gonna beat Kaido. I think it's also important to ask why Oda is emphasizing this new ability of Luffy's. At least I think it's new, to communicate with others telepathically now, despite being unconscious. At first I thought it was only Momonosuke that could hear him, but others can now hear him too, which is strange. The voice of all things isn't just passive, it's now active. You can both hear and talk to people, I guess. The spirits are now connected, intertwined, maybe. An expansion of spirit. Did we ever see Roger or others do this? I'm not sure. Is it because Luffy is maybe Joyboy? Did Joyboy have this expanded gift? Either way, Luffy has now showcased the capacity to use Conquerors haki and now the voice of all things while unconscious. It's as if Luffy's spirit has grown, expanded, like something has awakened inside. Every time Luffy is knocked out, his spirit evolves in some way. That is what Oda seems to be directing our focus toward. As Rayleigh said, haki only blooms in the heat of battle. Combined with the reality that Conquerors haki cannot be learned, it too develops through the endurance of adversity. The fact that Conquerors is the power to fight with your spirit, maybe. It would then seem as if this fight with Kaido is intended to turn Luffy into a true Yonko, to give him not just the title or status of an Emperor of the Sea, but the strength of one as well. Skin, blood, muscle, bone, each of these steps was not just a physical expansion of rubber, but power as well. With each form, Luffy grew stronger. What of the soul? If that is a part of Luffy as well, to stretch and expand one's spirit or haki, this too would add to his overall strength, maybe even granting him new abilities. If Luffy relies on his spirit more so than anything else for future gear, there are a few techniques worth mentioning. One is Ryu, and we already know that Ryu is flowing or expanding your spirit beyond your body, or at least the advanced version of Ryu. One is Red Hawk, and whatever other red or fire related moves Luffy has up his sleeve. If Luffy can manage to use even more fire, to use it further and farther, while it would feel like an overuse of Ace and maybe overshadow Sabo's abilities, there is still a spiritual connection and brotherly bond between the three that might justify it. The message Ace had left for Kaido in chapter 999, delivered in chapter 1000 by his younger brother, a warning for the next time he shows up there. Luffy's inheritance of that will sending Kaido to his knees with a fiery fist. It's interesting to think Luffy might be able to coat his entire body in fire to spread the embers of Ace's memory and lingering soul around himself. If Red Hawk truly has haki or spiritual origins. Somebody had left a comment telling me how fire can cause rubber to undergo a process of vulcanization. This leads to the hardening of rubber. Thus, Red Hawk becomes Red Rock, I guess. Luffy hardens himself. I had mentioned Kaido's incredible attack power and defense, and it would seem as if this vulcanization process could break through Kaido's durable body and dragon scales, and when coupled with Conquerors, Kaido's will as well, alongside protecting Luffy and giving him enhanced durability. Would this be Tankman or Rockman or Fireman? I personally like Hawkman, a relevant animal maybe, but there's no real way to guess a name Oda might use. Boundman or Bounceman seems inspired by a gorilla but isn't named after it at all. But as Luffy falls into the ocean, there is another thing that came to mind, Awakening itself. In terms of Luffy's defeats so far, he has lost to Kaido on land and in the air, but what about the sea? There's a scene in the One Piece opening that many have talked about by now. I know Joy Boy and Brago have. Luffy is seen drowning off in the water at the very least. He seems to reach out and grasp at something, claiming a power he didn't have before. There are these weird effects or animations around him. The world, nature, the environment, or whatever you want to call it, is exploding or bending with energy in ways that defy physics and gravity. It's hard to tell what exactly is going on, but the scene implies the effects are a result of something Luffy himself did. Luffy has learned to flow, not just his arm and haki, now his Conquerors too. If the spirit is what is flowing in the case of haki in either case, then the soul or spirit of a devil fruit can now flow as well. Which means Luffy might now have the necessary basis to spread the spirit of his own devil fruit to his surroundings, to let the devil fruit flow from within. And so maybe Luffy's awakening is a combination of expanding his devil fruit to his surroundings, rubberizing the environment, as well as enhancing his own rubber-related abilities. For the soul to expand or accelerate in much the same way that Luffy's skin, blood, bone, and muscle can, would imply it can spread further beyond him. A spreading of his devil fruit's essence to the surroundings may be stretching the environment, but also a multiplier of sorts that adds to Luffy's elastic or rubbery traits or accelerates Luffy's own strength. I like the idea of a haki amplifier or multiplier treated the same way as doping under Gear 2nd. I kind of like the idea of Luffy's soul burning hotter, growing in size. Kind of like Goku's Kaioken. Overall, Gear 5 would stretch or expand metaphorically Luffy's abilities and power to their fullest extent. As I said in my other Gear 5 video, it would be a limit breaker of sorts, going above and beyond anything he has ever done. And for Conquerors, this would mean Luffy's spirit would behave much like his devil fruit. Rubber never folds. It might bend, but it doesn't break. No matter what you try to do to it, it snaps back to its proper form. No matter how many times you knock down a king refuses to bow. If Wano will set Luffy apart from his peers, the worst generation, from everybody else in this age, a new gear and the limit-breaking power of a conquering soul is worthy of this moment. We will have to wait and see. Don't forget to like the video, comment with your thoughts below, share this with your friends, and subscribe. Also click that notification bell. As always, there's more to come. Until next time, I'll see you all in Valhalla.